Hi, my name is Sonia Gray. I'm the founder of Water and Earth Yoga. I'm a registered yoga teacher and a certified aqua yoga instructor. Today I'm going to talk to you about Pigeon Pose. I'll show you a couple modifications with props and also a version on the chair that is especially helpful if you have really tight hips, which can make Pigeon Pose very challenging. So with the chair, you could practice even like once a day, and then you might find the traditional Pigeon Pose a bit more accessible. Okay, so let's start with the traditional version of Pigeon Pose. To get into Pigeon Pose, I like to go from downward dog using blocks. With a big belly, as a fat person with a big belly and a big chest, the blocks give you more height, like we talked about in the other video, and more space to bring your knee forward. So that's how I like to get into pigeon. So coming into table with blocks, so knees below hips, hands and blocks below shoulders, pushing away from the mat, externally rotating your shoulders, soft elbows, spreading those shoulder blades wide, navel towards spine, nice engagement of the core, looking down length through your neck. And then going into down dog, using that nice firm core, lifting your knees up and then pushing your hips up and back. Shoulder blades are wide. And then to come into pigeon, slowly come forward. You can even round your back, bringing your right knee toward your right armpit and your foot below that knee. So your knee is, or your shin is on an angle. So I'm just going to move up here a bit. So you have your knee above your foot. Now, the more traditional version, you would have your shin parallel to the short side of your mat, to the top of your mat. That can be extremely painful for your knee joint. So for me, what I feel is safe, or what I like to teach, is with your shin on an angle like this. I just find it's way more comfortable. Okay, so extending the left leg back. And then you can stay here, up like this. The further you go down, the bigger the stretch. So option here to stack some blocks or a bolster, maybe coming down onto your forearms. And then as you're sinking into pigeon, you can move down to one block, and then maybe all the way to the earth. And then looking down, nice length through your neck. So that's an option for, this is an option for pigeon. Now, staying right here is just fine. You can totally stay right here, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people will, especially if you have tight hips. So don't be discouraged if you can't go further down. That's not a problem. You'll get there. Or you might not get there, and that's okay. Now to come out of this, sink down onto your right hip, and then you can swing your left foot forward. Now I'll show you a modified version of pigeon called 90-90. And then just from seated, you can come into this pose. So I'm just going to move this bolster out of the way. So bringing your right shin parallel to the top of the mat. And again, you can bring that foot down lower than your knee on a slight angle. That might be a little bit nicer for your knee. And then you're going to take your left foot and swing it back so your left shin is parallel to the long edge of your mat. And then the further you bring your knee back, the more stretch and stuff you're going to get. So from here, so this is a version of pigeon. Just like any other pigeon, this is a totally legit version of pigeon. So you can stay here, and again, you can do what we talked about as you're sinking into this pose. You might be able to use to come down lower. So you might want to start here and then maybe remove a block, come down, or you might be able to come all the way down. But the thing is, when you have a big belly, that can be hard too. So don't be shy about lifting and moving your belly. So here I'm going to lift the right side of my belly and then fold forward and then release it. And then I'll be able to come down a lot further. So that's 90-90 pigeon. So now we're gonna do pigeon with a bolster. So I'm gonna come into pigeon again from down dog. Now, what happens here, because you want to stay centered, you don't want to lean one side or the other, and then depending on how tight your hips are, you might kind of favor one side or the other to kind of relieve that tightness. So an option here is to use a bolster, and you would just, I like to use a prana bolster, which is a bit thinner than your traditional bolster, but a traditional bolster will work fine too. So you want to place the bolster behind, if you have your right leg forward, behind your right leg. So you're kind of straddling the bolster. So your pubic bone is going to be on the bolster. So you have your leg here out front on an angle, your left leg extended behind you, the bolster is in the middle, and it's supporting your hip and it's helping you keep straight. So that's an option, and then with the blocks or all the way down. Okay, that's pigeon with a bolster. Okay, another option for pigeon, and like I said, this is a great way to practice pigeon every day, a more accessible way. I mean, something you could do at the office or first thing in the morning while you're waiting for your coffee to brew, or anytime really, anytime you have a chair. And then like I said, either forelegs on the mat or the back of the chair up against the wall. Nice sturdy chair, no wheels. Okay, to come into pigeon with a chair, grab onto the back of the chair, but make sure you're not pushing back so you're not lifting the front legs off the chair. So just grabbing the chair, kind of just making sure it's sturdy. And then step your right foot up again, up on the chair. And again, making sure that chair is stable. I like to grab the base of the chair in the middle. I find that kind of stabilizes it a bit more. But we're doing that same shape where your knee is forward, your shin is on an angle with your foot coming down. Now you can stay here and hold the back of the chair, or you can step your left foot back and come down further. And then you might hold the side of the back of the chair or come all the way down to the seat of the chair. So that's another option that you can do pretty much anytime, anywhere you have a chair. And it's a great way to work on loosening your hips every day to eventually maybe get into the more traditional pigeon. And then to come out of that, just pressing into the base of the chair, sliding your right leg off and coming up. Well, I hope that you found that helpful. I know pigeon pose is the bane of some of my students' existence. I personally love pigeon pose, and I find that it's mainly like a love-hate kind of thing. People either love it or they hate it. Again, I love it. I think it's a wonderful pose. But yeah, it can be fairly inaccessible if you do have tight hips. So I do highly recommend that if that is the case, that just practice that chair pigeon once a day. I think that after a bit, you might find the 90-90 or the more traditional pigeon pose more accessible. And again, if you don't, that's totally okay too. Okay, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, you can either come to one of my classes. I highly recommend yoga for everybody if you're a beginner or if you're just looking to improve on foundations. That's at 6:30 on Tuesdays at Colwood Pacific Activity Center. If you can't come to class, then you can always email me at waterandearthyoga@gmail.com, or you can visit my website, waterandearthyoga.ca, or reach me on any of my socials at Water Earth Yoga. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I look forward to seeing you again. Take good care.